At 2 a.m., my kitchen was on fire. I grabbed my phone, I called for help, and somehow that was the worst decision I made that night. Before I tell you what happened, I need you to understand something about me. I am, by every measurable standard, a terrible person to have around during a crisis. Not because I panic, no, it's actually much worse than that. I stay completely calm and make the absolute worst possible decisions with full confidence. This is the story of the night I proved that beyond any reasonable doubt. By the end of this story, I had accidentally started a family feud that's still going on to this day, been yelled at by a complete stranger for 6 uninterrupted minutes, and somehow owed someone an apology for a fire I didn't even start. And here's the thing. I want you to stay until the end because I'm going to ask you something. Because if you were in my situation, I genuinely want to know what you would have done. Maybe you'd have done better. Or maybe, and I suspect this is more likely, you'd have made exactly the same mistake I did. So, it's a Tuesday night. I've just gotten home from work. It's late. I'm tired. The kind of tired where you're making decisions on maybe 40% of your brain capacity. The other 60% completely offline, gone, out of office with no return date. I decide, brilliant idea, to cook pasta at 11 p.m., which in hindsight was mistake number 1, but we don't know that yet, where we're still in the optimistic part of the evening. I put the water on to boil. I put some oil in a pan. I go to my room for what I tell myself will be just 5 minutes to scroll my phone. 37 minutes later, the smoke alarm goes off. And I mean goes off, not a polite little beep, a full theatrical production. Lights, sound, the whole thing. The oil in the pan had gotten very, very hot. There was smoke absolutely everywhere. And the pan had started to do something I can only describe as glowing angrily. Now here's where a normal person, a sensible person, does one of 3 things. They turn the stove off, they grab a lid, they call the actual fire department if it's serious enough. Me, I did none of those things. What I did, and I want you to really absorb this, is I grabbed my phone and started scrolling through my contacts, looking for someone who could help. I don't know what help I expected them to provide over the phone from a different location about a fire that was happening right now. But that's the 40% brain for you. It had a plan. The plan was terrible. My first instinct was to call my best friend Rohan. Rohan is calm. Rohan is practical. Rohan once talked me down from a full anxiety spiral about whether I'd locked my door from 200 kilometers away. Rohan was the right call. I did not call Rohan. What I called, in my panic state, in the dark, with one eye still half asleep, was not Rohan. The contacts are alphabetically sorted. Rohan starts with R. But in my panic, my thumb had scrolled up too far. Way up, all the way up to the R's. But not that R. I had called Rekha Aunty. Now, for those of you who don't have a Rekha Aunty in your family, let me paint you a picture. Rekha Aunty is 63 years old. She has strong opinions about everything, the memory of an elephant, and absolutely nothing to do at midnight except wait for news that will become gossip by morning. She is the single worst possible person to call during a crisis. She picked up on the first ring, like she was waiting, like she knew. She says, and I quote, "Hello? Who is this? Do you know what time it is?" And I say, because 40% brain, "Auntie, there's a fire." Silence. 3 full seconds of silence. And then Rekha Aunty says, very calmly, "What fire?" And I say, because I have apparently lost my mind entirely. "In my kitchen, Auntie, the pan, it's..." And she says, "Which pan? Which pan? The kitchen is on fire." And she wants to know which pan. So now, instead of dealing with the fire, I am describing my cookware to a 63-year-old woman at midnight. I tell her it's the small one, the non-stick one, and she actually says this, "I told your mother non-stick is not good. Did she listen? No." Nobody listens. The pan is on fire and we are discussing the validity of non-stick cookware. Meanwhile, the smoke is getting worse. The alarm is still screaming. At some point, my neighbor starts banging on the wall. I have smoke in my eyes. I am trying to handle the situation with one hand, and with the other hand, I am on the phone with Rekha Aunty, who is now, and this is where it truly goes off the rails. She has put me on hold. She put me on hold to go wake up my uncle, who she felt needed to hear this. I am standing in a smoky kitchen. The alarm is deafening. I have a glowing pan and I am on hold listening to what I'm pretty sure was an old film song playing from somewhere in the background of our house. 45 seconds. I was on hold for 45 seconds. And then my uncle gets on the line and he says, God help me. Better, did you use too much oil? Now here's the thing. The fire, and I use that word loosely, it was more of an aggressive smoking situation, was actually manageable. I eventually had the presence of mind to simply turn off the stove, slide a lid over the pan, and open the window. Crisis technically over. Time elapsed about 4 minutes, but the call was still very much ongoing. While I had been on the phone, Rekha Aunty had done what Rekha Aunty does best. She had called my mother. My mother, who was asleep in another city at midnight, who now believed, based on Rekha Auntie's retelling of a 45-second phone call, that her child was trapped in a burning building and refusing to call 999. My mother called me approximately 11 seconds later. In the next 14 minutes, and I have the call logs to prove this, the following things happened in this order. My mother called me, panicking. My mother called my father to tell him. My father called my uncle to ask what Rekha Aunty had actually said. My uncle called Rekha Aunty to clarify. Rekha Aunty called my mother back with additional details she had remembered. Someone, to this day I don't know who, called my cousin Priya, who is 22, dramatic and active on 3 different family WhatsApp groups. Priya posted in all 3 groups. By 12:30 a.m., 47 family members across 4 time zones had been informed that I was, quote, nearly killed in a kitchen disaster. My aunt in Canada had lit a candle for me. A candle near her own kitchen. But we haven't talked about the neighbor yet. Remember the banging on the wall? Yeah, while I had been on an international family telephone relay for the past 30 minutes, my neighbor had not been idle. She'd called the building manager, who had called the emergency maintenance line, who had sent someone to check on the apartment. So, at 12:15 a.m., there's a knock at my door. I open it. A man I have never seen before in my life is standing there with a fire extinguisher, looking deeply prepared to be a hero. He looks at me. He looks at my kitchen. He looks at the perfectly fine, smoke-cleared kitchen. The pan, sitting safely on the stove. The window open. The alarm no longer going off. He says, "Is this a joke?" It was not, I told him. It was not a joke. It was a Tuesday. He stared at me for 6 seconds. I counted. And then, unprompted, completely voluntarily, he chose to give me a 6-minute lecture about fire safety, responsible cooking, and the importance of not leaving pans unattended. And I stood there and I took it. I woke up the next morning to 43 unread messages. 43, ranging from genuine concern, "Beta, are you okay? Drink warm water," to baffling, "I heard you nearly died. Should we postpone the family function?" Die, to my personal favorite from my cousin Priya, who had posted a prayer emoji in the family group at 1 a.m. and then, apparently having fully recovered from her worry, followed it up at 7 a.m. with a reel about kitchen fire prevention. My mother had also, at some point between midnight and 6 a.m., ordered me a fire extinguisher on Amazon. Express delivery. It arrived that afternoon, before the pasta I was trying to make. So let's do a final damage report, shall we? Physical damage to the kitchen, 0. The pan survived. Slightly darker on the bottom, but alive. Emotional damage to my family's nervous system. Significant. My mother didn't sleep that night. My uncle is still convinced I am not to be trusted with cooking unsupervised. Family WhatsApp groups affected, 3, one of which I was then added to specifically so people could keep an eye on me. New enemies made, one maintenance man who I now avoid in the lift, and Rekha Aunty. Oh, Rekha Aunty 1, she has brought up the fire incident at every single family gathering since. She's upgraded the story each time. Last I heard, the version she tells now involves the whole building filling with smoke and me refusing to evacuate. Now, here's the thing about this entire situation. If you strip it all back, the family panic, the maintenance man, the 43 messages, the Amazon extinguisher, it all came down to one decision, one moment, one wrong contact at exactly the right amount of panic. I should have called Rohan. Rohan would have said, "Turn the stove off and open the window," and gone back to sleep. 3 sentences. Crisis resolved. Nobody in Canada lighting candles. Instead, I called Rekha Aunty. And in doing so, I accidentally activated the entire family communications network at midnight on a Tuesday, over a pan of oil that sorted itself out in 4 minutes. The moral? I genuinely don't know. Maybe save the right numbers more prominently in your phone. Maybe don't cook at 11 p.m. Maybe invest in non-stick alternatives, as Rekha Aunty would suggest. Or maybe the real lesson is that chaos doesn't need a big reason to show up. Sometimes all it needs is one wrong thumb tap. But here's the thing I genuinely want to know. And I mean this. I'm not just asking, I actually want you to answer this in the comments. If you were in that situation, kitchen filling with smoke, phone in hand, panic fully activated, who is the first person you'd call? Like your actual first instinct, not who you should call, who your thumb would reach for at 11:47 p.m. when your brain is running on 40%. Because I have a theory. I think most of us have a Rekha Aunty equivalent in our contacts. Someone we know on a calm, logical Tuesday, we should absolutely not call in a crisis. And yet somehow, in the moment, they're the first one our brain lights up. Drop your answer in the comments. Seriously, tell me who your person is. And bonus points, tell me what chaos they would accidentally unleash. And look, if this story made you feel even slightly better about your own life choices tonight, you're very welcome. That's what we do here at Crazy Tales. We take the most chaotic, embarrassing, absolutely unhinged situations that life throws at one very unlucky person, and we serve them to you so you can laugh, cringe, and feel a little less alone about the ridiculous things that happen when you're just trying to make pasta at 11 p.m. If you want more stories like this, and trust me, I have a lot of them. This was not an isolated incident, this is sort of just my life. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell if you actually want to be notified, because I upload new chaos every week. And share this with someone who also has a Rekha Aunty in their life. They'll know exactly who they are. I'll see you in the next story. Stay safe, don't leave pans unattended. And for the love of everything, double check who you're calling.